In this video, I will be showing you how to set up your file, isolate your image, and save in the correct file formats for assignment 3. So first things first, we are going to go ahead and open up Photoshop and set up our file. So once you open up Photoshop, you want to go to Create New, and you want to make sure that your file size is 5 inches by 5 inches. Make sure that it's in inches right here. The resolution should be 300 pixels per inch. Color mode, RGB. Go ahead and click Create. Before we do anything, we want to make sure that our image kind of lays within the center of your artboard, and also in order to make it a very good size, we want to keep it roughly around 3 inches by 3 inches. So we're going to go ahead and set up some guides before we do anything else. The way to set up the guides is you go up to View, then you go down to New Guide, and we're going to set up our vertical guides at 1 and 4. So here's one at 1, and then go back up to View, New Guide, 4, View, New Guide, and then we're going to set up horizontal ones at 1 and 4 also, like such. So basically this is just a helpful tool to make sure that your image is more or less around 3 inches by 3 inches, and it's going to stay nice and centered on your canvas. Once you have your document set up like such, you're going to go ahead and open your image. Go up to File and then Open. And I have an image saved on my desktop, but you should have yours in a folder, any folder. Just make sure that you're as organized as you possibly can be. Alright, so when you open an image, it's going to open up in a different file. To zoom out, you can do Command minus like such, and the first thing you want to do is unlock this image like such by clicking the lock icon over here, and you can see that it opened in a new file. This is our old file, this is the new file. We want to duplicate this and put it into the file that we will be working in. So first, you want to right click on the layer, go up to duplicate layer, and then the destination should be Untitled 1 or whatever your document is called. So now if you go in here, you'll notice that it has copied over to here, and the image is quite large at the moment, as it should be if you have a high quality image. So first we're going to go ahead and resize the image. The shortcut is going to be Command T for transform, but the long way to do it is go up to Edit, and you can do transform scale, or you can do free transform, and then grab a corner and just drag it down. If you hold down the option button and do it, it scales it down from the center. So I'm very interested in, by the way, like, you don't have to hold down the shift button in Photoshop anymore to resize things. In Illustrator you still do, so just keep that in mind when you're doing that, because if you do hold down shift, it will actually skew the image. So don't hold down shift when you are resizing from the corner in Photoshop. Okay, so another quick tool. First of all, we want to make sure that our butterfly or whatever it is that you're isolating stays nicely within your boundaries that you've created. And you can see here that my butterfly is wider than it is tall. So the widest part of your subject should be around 3 inches. So in my case, it's a wider than tall image, so I'm just going to scale it down a little bit more so that now roughly it's like around from here to here. There's a lot of negative space here, which is why I'm not going to bother too much to make it much smaller, because I feel like this is a very comfortable size. And the height is just going to scale to whatever it is going to be, because we don't want to make it exactly 3 inches by 3 inches, because then it won't be scaled down properly. So if basically the widest part of your item should be the 3 inches. So if your object or if your subject is like taller than it is wide, then the height of it should be 3 inches, and then the width should be whatever it scales down to. So I'm pretty happy with the location of where this butterfly is landing in my boundary, and then you want to press enter to place it there so that that bounding box kind of goes away. And one thing I want to show you before we really start cropping this image out is that I like to use the zoom in and out shortcut command plus and command minus. So I'll be zooming in and out quite a bit when I'm working. And then I also really like to use the space bar. When you press the space bar, your cursor, which should be on here to begin with, your cursor kind of turns into a hand, and that just means that it's going to grab it, and it's easy to kind of like move around like this. So I think it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's a really handy tool when you're working really close up with something. Alright, so those are the quick shortcuts that I wanted to talk to you about first before we get started, and now I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can isolate your image. So I will be showing you 2 different methods on how to isolate your image. The first way I'm going to show you is by using the quick selection tool, which is right over here on the left side panel. It's the 4th one down. If you hold that icon down and go to quick selection tool, it might be on the magic tool by default, but you want to click on the quick selection tool like such. This is a really convenient tool to use only when there is high contrast in the image that you want to cut out. So we're interested in this butterfly right over here, and although it seems like there is a very high contrast between the butterfly and the background, there are still some parts that are a little bit hazy, like this area right here, and then the shadow area down here. So I don't recommend using the quick selection tool often unless there is a very sharp contrast between your object and the background. But we're going to try it here and see how it goes, just so that you can kind of see what is going on. Also, I've turned my background layer off. We can keep it, I like to keep it here. I don't like to delete it, just because sometimes I like to see whatever else is left on my page that I can see it better. But when you're saving your files, you want to make sure that this background layer is turned off. Alright, so let's get right into it. I have my quick selection tool selected. My paintbrush for this is quite large, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize the size of that quite a bit. I think this much is going to be much better. We're going to keep the hardness at 100% for now, and then let's see how it goes. So here I am, zoomed in a bit. Let's zoom out again, see. Alright, so basically the way to use this is you just kind of like click on the areas that you want to select around your butterfly or whatever object you're working with, like such. And actually I'm thinking that my brush size is still a bit big, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Alright. And then you just kind of like walk it through the parameter of it. So you can already tell that I messed up right over here. The default is plus, so if you click and drag, it's going to keep selecting those areas. The way to, if you've over selected, you can hold down Option or Alt, and the minus sign will appear, and then you can undo what you've over selected. So I'm going to hit Option, and that plus sign inside the brush tool turns into a minus sign, and I can just go and kind of like undo that little area. I like to use the space bar to like move around and stuff, so that's what I'm doing. And then let's go back to selecting this area, and you can kind of delete as you go like such. And now this is still quite rough, so at the end we can try to clean it up a bit. So I'm just hitting the delete button as I'm going. Alright, so things are starting to get a little bit tricky over here. Alright, so now I'm going to get the eraser tool, and now that I've gone almost all the way around the butterfly, I can just erase all the way, all the other stuff that's in there that I don't really need. So the eraser tool is right over here, and again you can change the size of this similar to the quick selection tool. I can go a little bit bigger like such. Right now it's not selecting it because I have a dotted line area selected over here, so go up to select and deselect, and now you can go ahead and erase everything else that you don't want. It looks like there's some feathering happening, so I'm going to make this 100% so that we can just get rid of it all. We don't need to be very careful with the edge because we have already sort of isolated the butterfly enough. So you want to just grab all these areas like such very carefully. I'm doing a very rough job here, guys. I want you to do a much better job than this. Take your time with it. I'm gonna get this area up here. Alright, so I'm going to make my size much smaller so we can get in this little area in here that the quick selection tool was not able to get because it was too, it wasn't contrasty enough. Alright, so here is my isolated butterfly. I'm pretty happy with how this is looking for now. And the image is more or less in the 3-inch wide range. And this is done being isolated. You want to turn the background layer off, and then you are done isolating using the quick selection tool. Now I'm going to show you how to use the pen tool in order to isolate your object. And this is the method that I prefer that you use, especially if you don't have a high contrast image. So I'm going to go ahead and just undo everything that I did, or rather, you know what, I'm just gonna delete this layer and then start from the beginning. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. I'm gonna go back to my butterfly file over here and reduplicate it back into that document, like such. Alright, again, I'm going to resize it first by holding down Command T. Kind of get it into the place that I had it before, more or less, like such. Alright, so now we're going to be using the pen tool in order to isolate your image. This is the preferred way to do it. You've already mastered the pen tool in Illustrator. Now you will master the pen tool in Photoshop. First, you want to select the pen tool, which is right over here. And before you start making your path, you want to go up to this area here and make sure that path is selected and not shape. Very important before you begin working with the pen tool in Photoshop. Alright, so now that you have path selected, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit and pick a spot that you want to start, and don't just click there, but click and drag in the direction that you want to go in. So I'm going to start right over here and then sort of click and drag in this sort of direction because I want to go this way. So now that you have that point created, you can sort of start to create your anchor points and click and drag in the direction that you want to go in, like such. Now you can always go ahead and add more anchor points or delete anchor points, but right now I'm just going to do a rough outline and see how it's looking and then add more if more is needed. So basically you just kind of like click until you're happy with how it's going. Start to curve like such. Now if it's like kind of going in a weird direction and it feels like it has a mind of its own, you can always hit Option and the last anchor point, and that sort of almost resets it in a way, and it won't make it go in some weird direction that you don't want it to go. So just keep that in mind. Okay, like right now it's doing that thing, so I'm going to hit Option, and that little area next to the cursor turns into like a corner. If you make an anchor point and you don't like it, you can also do Command Z to undo it. It's kind of a tricky little area. I'm trying to go as fast as I can without doing a horrible job. Alright, so just now I tried to go around this little corner, and you can see that this curve is a bit extreme. So I'm going to hold down Command and click on this lever to make it a little bit shorter so it's not as extreme of a curve. So like such, and now if I go this way, it won't be as crazy. It takes some getting used to. You're definitely going to have to play around with it and see and try to like get comfortable with it before you can move a little bit faster, but you'll get the hang of it. Alright, so we're getting close to the end here, and we're just about to close the path, and you'll notice that something funny happens here. Now, if your path kind of goes wonky at the end like this, all you need to do is press Option and then close the path. So I'm just going to undo that, pressing Option, and now it's not going to be as crazy. Alright, so I have closed my path and I have selected my whole butterfly, and like I mentioned before, you can definitely add or subtract anchor points and kind of like edit those a bit. So it looks, for example, like in this area over here that I kind of like missed a part over here, so I can just add an anchor point by clicking here, and you'll see that next to my cursor that it turns into a plus sign if there's no anchor point. If you hover over an anchor point, it'll turn into a minus, because that way you can subtract that minus point or delete that anchor point. Now if I hold down Command and click on this anchor point here, I can kind of like nudge it up a little bit like such, so that I can select more of the area that I want and make it a little bit more accurate. So again, here I'm gonna do that, and then you can also edit like these guys also. So don't be afraid to kind of like do a rough job in the beginning and then cleaning it up a little bit later. Let's add an anchor point here. Press Command and edit like such. Alright, so this is looking as good as it's going to look right now. So now what you want to do after you've completed your path is right click on your path and go to Make Selection. And in this new dialog box, you will see that there is a feathering option, which will make it more or less sharp. For this butterfly, we can keep the feathering at 0 for now and then click OK. And now you'll see that there are some dotted lines surrounding the parameter of the umbrella. All you need to do now is hit Command J. And when you hit Command J, you'll notice that now there is another layer in here that just appeared. Basically what that's doing is that it is just taking what you have selected and putting it on its own layer. So if I deselect this layer here and make it invisible, only what I selected will remain. As you can see, we used the pen tool. It was much more accurate. So I highly recommend using the pen tool to isolate your image rather than using the quick selection tool, depending on how much of a contrast there is to your object and the background. So those are the two ways to isolate your object. Now I'm going to show you how to go ahead and save. So basically you want to go ahead and turn the background layer off so that it is transparent, and once you have that turned off, you want to go up. First of all, you want to make sure that you save your file as a PSD file, so go to File save as, and you can put it in your desktop wherever you want to put it. I'm going to just call it isolation. And hit save. Click OK. And then you can go up to File, Export, and then Save for Web. And in the preset, you want to click on PNG 24 and then hit save. I'm going to put this on the desktop for now as well. I'm not being very organized. I should be. I will show you how to do that in a second. Hit save, and then now you can see that your isolated butterfly is here. There she is. And you will be turning in the PNG file as well as the PSD file. Alright, in terms of organizing, you want to make your folder called images or isolated images, whatever you want to call it. And in here you should have a folder called PNG and a folder called PSD. You don't have to do it this way. This is just the way my brain is working. I'm going to go ahead and put the PSD file here and the PNG file here. Or you could do like animal butterfly. And then put both of your PNG and PSD in here, for example. However you want to do it is going to be totally up to you. Just make sure that you are organized in some way that makes sense. Alright, so that's pretty much how you get your image into Photoshop, how you isolate your image, and how to save your image.